Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to the Arts and Ability Roundtable, and this is provided to us through the Muckenthaler Cultural Center. So we're very, very grateful for this opportunity to work with the Muck today. My name is Erin Schalk and I am the artist in residence this year at the Muckenthaler Cultural Center. Excuse me, I'm a little froggy today. I'm going to take a sip of water. For the 2001 season. So just a couple of housekeeping things as we get started today. We are a good sized group, I think just perfect, really a good sized discussion group of about 12 participants right now. So if possible, when you're not speaking, feel free to mute yourself just to reduce background noise. I'll be doing the same. Many of you know that I have a relatively busy household with 2 small children and a dog, so I will do my best as well to reduce background noise too. And like I mentioned, we will be recording the event. For those of you who just joined us, if you don't want your camera on or your video in this recording, feel free to turn your camera off and then your face won't be a part of the recording. Also too, once the recording is complete, then I will upload this to Vimeo. I will make that link available to those who participated today, and this will be posted as well on the Muckenthaler social media. And then, of course, too, if you would like, you're welcome to introduce yourselves, perhaps in the chat. Your name and where you're from, although I think most everyone knows each other relatively well here. Okay, and so I will move on to our list of presenters today. Again, my name is Erin Schalk, and we will have presenter number 1 is Kurt Weston. Oh my goodness, everyone, this is embarrassing. Excuse me. Kurt Weston, then Marleena Barber, Mishelle Link, Valerie Alcaraz, Michael Dougherty, and then we'll just have brief conclusions and thank you. So for all of those who are presenting today, feel free to let us know when you want to take questions from us. So some of you I know have a presentation already planned, so you may be spending 10 minutes on that, give or take. But just let us know when you want questions from us. You can go ahead and prompt us. And in addition to, if you have any questions, say anyone in the audience that comes up prior to the time when our presenters prompt us for questions, go ahead and you can put those in the chat as well. And I'll be monitoring the chat and make sure that everyone's questions hopefully get answered as long as time allows. So let's get started if everyone's ready. Kurt, are you ready? Is everything good for you?
Yes, and just one question, Erin. So if somebody types a question into the chat, will you present that question?
Yes.
Or are you expecting us to read that from
no,
the chat?
I'll read it.
Okay, because I'm not going to be able to do that.
Yes, I've done enough of these to know that there always needs to be one person designated to watching that chat. So I will make sure that I take care of that.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Of course.
Can I share my screen now?
Yes. Let me get you. I'm going to make you the host, Kurt, so you're able to share your screen whenever you're ready. And welcome to those of you who just joined us as well. Glad to have you here. Okay, Kurt, I will be timing you just so everybody has roughly the same amount of time. And I'll give you a notice at 10 minutes and then when we get closer to that 18-minute mark.
Okay. I hope you guys can see my screen.
It looks good to me, Kurt.
Okay, I'm going to get this up and running. Okay, so my name is Kurt Weston, and I'm going to share. Welcome to all of you, and I really appreciate being on this roundtable with all of you other artists. It's an honor to be with you all, and I'm going to be discussing. I've got many bodies of work, but I'm going to be primarily focusing on one of my most iconic bodies of work, what I call my blind vision work. So and as I speak, I'm just going to kind of scroll through my slide presentation so that you can kind of see what I've got here as I speak. So back in in the mid 80s to early 90s, I was working as a professional fashion photographer. And then in 1991, I was diagnosed with HIV/AIDS. And actually, at that point, I was diagnosed with full-blown AIDS and ended up in the hospital with, at that time, PCP, which is the AIDS-related pneumonia. Shortly after that, I continued to get more opportunistic infections associated with AIDS, and eventually, in 1996, lost most of my vision to cytomegalovirus, which attacked my retinas and left me totally blind in my left eye, and with only limited peripheral vision, no central vision in my right eye. So I really was pretty devastated, having been involved with the visual arts and professionally as a fashion photographer. Now I was legally blind and also just trying to survive the disease of AIDS, which was very difficult. I also got Kaposi sarcoma, which were purplish red lesions that formed all over my face and body. So I was easily identified as a person living with AIDS. And it was very difficult. You know, there was a lot of prejudice against people who were living with AIDS at the time because people were afraid of the virus. They didn't know how it was spread. And so, you know, being easily identified as a person with the disease was very stigmatizing. And so when I moved out here to California from Chicago, I was told that I only had 6 months left to live and that I was basically end stage disease. And so I came out here and really just thought I was going to die. But luckily, within that 6-month period, the medications for treating AIDS became better, and they came up with the HIV/AIDS drug cocktails, which I was able to start taking, and it completely changed my life. I started feeling better and recovering from the immense immune destruction that I had experienced living with AIDS. And I then basically had to learn how to negotiate my life living as a blind person. So I went to the Braille Institute and I learned about low vision magnification devices and adaptive computer technology. And I realized after I got all of this amazing information that I could still do my work. Of course, no longer could I do it as a professional photographer, but I could do it as an art photographer. And so I started creating artworks that represented aspects of my own life, my own personal experiences. And I then started generating this work, which my blind vision is my own journey into vision loss, it's the emotional and psychological weight of sight loss. And I started to try to figure out ways that was, you know, the best way to represent that aspect of my my experience. So for like instance, in this image, which I call floaters, I wanted to show, because I do have this condition as part of my eye damage, these things called floaters, which are these sort of spots and spider webby kind of things that float and slosh around in front of my visual field. And so I thought, well, how can I show this to the viewing audience, how that experience or how that feels? So I experimented with different adaptive or alternative image capture, and I ended up using a computer scanner. So I would lay things like tinsel and foaming glass cleaner onto the scanning bed, and then I would put my face on top of that to help me to represent these various aspects of what was happening in my own visual field. And for instance, this image, you see it kind of becomes performative. You see my hand trying to push away or wipe away the obstruction from my visual field, which of course I'm not able to do, but of course I have a desire to want to do that. And so in this image, you see me trying to do that. This image is called Losing the Light. And it was actually used in a show at the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts that was called Transformations. And they used this image on the postcard to advertise the Transformation show. And here's another very iconic image. This one is now in the permanent collection of the Houston Fine Arts Museum. It's called Peering Through the Darkness. And again, once again, you see me trying with my hand to wipe away or push away the obstruction from my visual field. And then of course, I have to use all kinds of magnification devices and adaptive technology. And a lot of times these things become very cumbersome, having to wear, magnification glasses and using things like the Dougherty. And so I actually thought it would be kind of fun. I call this real vision. And I actually used my old film reels from when I used to process film, photographic film. I had to wind it onto these reels. And so I put the reels in front of my eye and kind of use that to portray a visual magnification device. But it's kind of a play on words, real vision and the difference between R-E-E-L and R-E-A-L. And just kind of a little comic thing on that. This is a little bit more pensive, reflective type of imagery. Again, this is an image called Reticulation, and it again shows all types of things going on within the visual field. I've been very much involved with the sort of the political movement of arts and disability. I have been involved with VSA Arts and also the National Arts and Disability Center. And in 2013, I helped assist, or actually it was actually 2003, I helped assist both of those organizations as a consultant with creating the careers in the higher values, the careers in the arts for people with disabilities. And I've also have gone with VSA to Washington to advocate for the continued funding of arts and education. So I also back in 2004, I helped create or co-created a show at the Southern California College of Optometry called Shared Visions, which was a show that featured the work of visually impaired and blind artists. It ran for 12 years straight, eventually became an international show, and it gave visually impaired artists the opportunity to show art, show their work to the public, sell their work. And it was actually very successful. So I'm really, really committed to not only promoting my own work, but helping to promote the work of other disabled artists, because I believe that there's a big story here, a bigger picture, and I think it's very important for all of us as artists to share our experiences, living with disability, and using that, that to educate, to kind of communicate to people in quote normal society that, you know, we have these abilities, we have the ability to be extremely creative, that we're, you know, conceptually have a lot of things going on, that, you know, we're very intelligent people, even though we have disability, and that we can communicate our experiences in these very creative and artistic ways. This image that I have up now is called The Procedure. I've had many eye surgeries and injections, intraocular injections into my eye. So I, again, try to represent this in my own way. I'm kind of using this instrument that's going into my eye to represent that experience. So a lot of my work can be a little edgy, but I think sometimes it's important to maybe, you know, put that out there so people can realize the and feel to some degree the experiences that many of us have to go through.
We have 4 minutes, Kurt. So
Okay,
how
I'll
would you
open it
like?
up to questions if
Okay.
anybody has any questions. Here's another shot called Interocular, where again, I've had many of these interocular injections of medication directly into my eye. And it's been a very bizarre experience, to say the least. I also had a show, a group show at the Berkeley Art Museum called Blind at the Museum. And for that show, I created, I don't have any images to show you, but I actually created some touchable photographs where I outlined the subject matter with caulking so that, blind individuals could actually touch the photograph and then hear an audio description so they could understand what it was they were experiencing. And the interesting thing about that show was that even sighted people would blindfold themselves and then try to experience the artwork as a blind person would, trying to have that same experience, which I thought was very interesting, that people with sight would be interested in doing that. I'm also working along with a company now called 3D Photo Works, where we're taking two-dimensional photographic images and converting them into three-dimensional touchable artworks. And there are sensors built into the touchable artwork pieces that also trigger audio descriptions. So as you're touching the artwork, it's speaking to you and telling you exactly what you're experiencing through touch. So it's a very well-rounded experience that makes art so much more accessible to people with different abilities.
I have a question for you, Kurt. What do you envision, say, the future of adaptive technology, especially in relation to the arts?
I think with like companies that I'm working with now, the the 3D photo works and tactile images, I think that art, and this is even for sighted people, art is becoming more and more interactive. You know, you could go to some of these major Smithsonian museums in Washington, D.C., and there are so many exhibits that are interactive where the viewer has to interact with the art through some type of digital device or whatever. And I think it makes it more, I think that's what our society wants. And I think that's going to open it up even more so for people with varying abilities, because, it's part of an interaction, but it's also creating greater accessibility. And most art institutions are being tasked with the mandate to create more opportunities for people with varying abilities to access their art. So I just think it's a win-win, and I see a lot more of this happening in the future.
Oh, wonderful. That's very encouraging. Thank you so much, Kurt, as always, for
Okay,
sharing
let me get out
your
of
wealth
this
of
screen
knowledge.
share. Oh, thank you. I gotta figure out how to get out of the screen
Okay.
share. I know there's somewhere on here that says I might have to exit out of the program and then, oh wait, stop. Okay, did I do that? Yeah, I did. Okay.
Okay, and Kurt, you may need to remake me the host.
Oh,
If
I don't know how to do that.
Oh, okay. If you click on the participants button at the bottom, it should bring out a side window.
Okay, hold on. Oh boy. Participants, okay.
So is my name showing up on the right side
You
in the
just
whole
have to give
list?
me a little time here. Kurt Weston. Yeah, your name is here. How do I do that then? I see your name.
If you hover over my name, there should be two buttons that come up, two blue buttons. The one farthest on the right will say more. And if you click on that, there should
Okay.
be an option to make me the host.
Oh, I have a question. If I could still ask a question.
Dan, just for time wise, if it's okay, we do need to move to Marleena, so every presenter has enough time. But if you want to pop your question and, or actually, if you want to let me know the question quickly,
Yeah, just a quick
while we
question.
figure this out. Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Okay, there you go.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kurt.
I'm sorry, but I've never done that before, but hey, we got it figured out.
Yes, no worries. It's part of it. So Dan, I think had a quick question for you, Kurt, and we will move to Marleena.
Yeah.
Marleena, I'm going to make you the host. So during that transfer, Dan, go ahead, get your question out for Kurt.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask for the art that when you touch it, it starts talking. Has any person got scared, like not expecting it was gonna talk?
No, I think most of the people coming to see these particular exhibitions are aware that these are accessibility exhibitions and that they have these built into them so that, you know, particularly visually impaired people can experience the work. So no, in fact, if anything, they're excited that somebody went to that degree of creating something specifically to suit their level of ability. And they're very pleased that somebody's taken the time to put the exhibition together. So yeah, nobody's been upset or shocked or anything.
All righty, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dan, for your question. And Marleena, please take it away. Let's see. Marleena, your slide presentation is showing up. No problem. Is there anything I can help with?
I just had to unmute myself. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Okay, let me get that. Oh shoot, what happened? Where'd it go? Okay, hold on. Is it still up?
It's
Okay.
still up, yeah.
Okay. All right, all of this technology.
I know. It
Okay.
always throws us a little bit of a curveball.
I know. Well, thank you so much for having me here today. And thank you, Erin, for putting this together. And again, as Kurt said, I feel so honored to be amongst all these wonderful artists and looking forward to hearing your presentations as well. It's so great to see you again, Kurt. And I loved seeing your images. Those were really powerful images too. So I am a cabaret artist, and I'll explain a little bit more about what cabaret is in a moment. But I first wanted to just give you a little bit of a personal background on myself and my disability. So first off, I was born with a genetic condition called albinism, and the condition affects the pigmentation of the eyes, hair, and skin. And because of that, it causes sensitivity to sunlight. So I have to be really careful in the sun, wearing lots of sunscreen, sunglasses, covered up hat, all of that. And then Something most people don't know about albinism is that there is a vision impairment associated with it. So those with the condition have there's quite a range of vision impairment. So I'm on the lower end where I'm considered legally blind, and can't do all those great things like driving, but it's all good. And I wanted to mention too that I grew up in a very small town in the state of Maine. And I mention this just because growing up in a rural area and being legally blind, it was a little bit challenging getting around transportation wise. There's not like a public transit system or anything. And also just wasn't too much diversity where I grew up. So I really stood out physically with my appearance, just being very pale and having all these vision aids and walking with a white cane. I think I was the only vision impaired person at my school. So that played a big role in like my development in my youth. I have a BA in vocal performance from Whittier College, and just recently in 2019 graduated with my master's in arts and culture management from the University of Denver. So much of my life, my adult career has been in arts and disability. I worked at Braille Institute for 12 years, directing the children's choir there and other music programs for youth. And then moved on just recently in 2019 to direct VSA Orange County, which is a small arts and disability nonprofit in partnership with the Orange County Department of Education. I also want to mention I'm married with 2 daughters. They're 7 and 10, and I am a cabaret artist. So I'll explain what cabaret here is. So for my vision impaired friends, I just have an image on the side, a silhouette of a female cabaret singer with a mic in front of a microphone. So cabaret originated in France in the 1880s, and it could be a group of performers. It could also be a soloist. It could be theatrical, music, dance. But for what I'm going to be talking about today in the United States, cabaret sort of evolved into a solo singer with a piano. And so that's really what I do. It's performing a collection of songs. Sometimes there's a theme, like the American Songbook or collection of songs by Cole Porter. Usually there's a storytelling element to it. So you take all of these songs and you string them together. And in between the songs, there's what we call patter. And it's almost like a conversation with the audience. And cabaret is usually in these more intimate settings, like a nightclub or a dinner theater. The audience is usually seated and eating or dining or having a beverage. And it's really just a nice setting and an opportunity for the performer to have this intimate conversation and experience with the audience. So what I was introduced to cabaret performance art right out of college, and I just loved it because it didn't have to be all one style of music. And as a vocalist, I love to sing everything. I love to sing country music, R&B, jazz, soul music, Broadway, Disney. I love all the styles. And so the cabaret performance style allowed me to kind of put together a show and showcase just a variety of different styles and things that I like to sing. So what I ended up doing is I put together a show about my life growing up with albinism, and almost, a lot like what Kurt did. He had created a work that reflected his experience in his life, and that's pretty much what my cabaret show is. So it's a one-woman show. It's about my life growing up with albinism and some of the challenges I've faced as a visually impaired person and artist. One of the major themes in it is is overcoming obstacles, which many people can relate to. We all are overcoming something, whether we have an external disability or it's something internal that we're just trying to overcome. And I talk a little bit about when I was younger, I was told I would not be a successful stage performer due to the way that I looked and the challenges I would face with my vision impairment. So I talk a little bit about how that made me feel and what I did and how I kind of moved forward from that. And I also share a little bit about myself as a disabled mother and how some of the challenges I faced with being a mother and so I'm going to show you a little clip. This is just a little 2.5-minute trailer of my cabaret show, just to give you a taste of it. It is called Thank You for the Music. And the reason why I titled that is because I also talk about in the show that music was sort of my saving grace. Once I discovered music, it really helped me with my confidence and really I literally found my voice, because I was teased a lot as in my youth for the way that I looked and for having a disability. So I hope that, was I supposed to do something before I share the video? Let me really quickly just exit out and then go back in, because I think that I need to click share sound.
Yes, at
Yeah.
the bottom left, there's a toggle button, share sound.
Okay, I got it. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, Marleena Barber.
I've always been shy. I confess that I'm shy. Can't you guess that this confident air is a mask that I wear 'cause I'm shy? There was a time when I wasn't so comfortable being in front of people. I was born with a condition, a genetic condition called albinism, and that condition affects the pigmentation of the eyes, hair, and skin. One thing that most people don't know about albinism is that it causes a vision impairment. I was called things like granny, old lady, whiteout, Q-tip, white-haired mummy, the list goes on. Always knew that I was different, often fled into a dream. I ignored the raging current, right against the tide I swam. But I floated with a question, who will love me as I am? One thing my parents did do is they recognized that I had some certain natural gifts and talents, and they saw me singing and dancing around the house, and so they put me in piano lessons and some dance lessons. Music was my saving grace, and it really made me feel like I was more than my disability. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossoms on the trees, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good. So I say thank you for the music, for giving it to me.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Oops.
Marleena.
Okay, hopefully you were able to hear some of that.
Oh, yeah.
So before I talk about VSA, I feel so grateful to have been able to have so many great opportunities to perform this show for different disability related conferences and events. And one of my favorite events that I was able to perform at was the 2010 VSA International festival that was produced by the Kennedy Center. So that was a great honor to be able to perform in that. And just as I've performed this at different events and connected with audiences, I love that sharing our stories, how it has an impact on other people. I've really seen that. And just because I'm sharing my story, so many people relate to it just because of those very universal themes about, overcoming obstacles and finding, that journey to your self-acceptance and loving yourself. And so how are we doing on time, Erin?
We have a little over 4 minutes.
Okay, so really quickly, just wanted to tell you what I'm doing. I'm still doing my show, but I'm also overseeing VSA Orange County. And we produce an annual Arts and Disability Festival every spring where we showcase performers and visual artists with disabilities, children and adults. So I'm still really involved in arts and disability work. And another organization I work with is NOAA. It stands for the National Organization for Albinism and Hypopigmentation, which is the condition that I have. And in 2018, I composed a choir of all people with albinism, and we performed at the national conference in 2018. In 2020, we were supposed to have our conference here in California, but due to the pandemic, we had to cancel. And so we put together a virtual choir. And I'm not sure I have time to show you the full clip, but just wanted to show you maybe just like the last bit of it here. But this is all people with albinism, and this was a virtual choir. This song is from Dear Evan Hansen, the musical. It's called You Will Be Found. My husband and I audio and video produced that. And there were, I think, 36 members that submitted videos from all over the country for that project. So lastly, this is just a slide that has a photograph of myself singing. And there are some websites and contact info for my website, my Facebook page, my personal email address, and then there's the VSA Orange County Facebook page and how to get in touch with me through VSA Orange County. So I know that was really quick and a lot of information, but if we do have time for questions, I'd be happy to answer any.
I think we have time for one question. Does someone have a question for Marleena?
Did you say that last video was all albinism?
Children
Children with albinism?
Yes, children and adults with albinism. I
And
think that,
adults. Okay.
yes. Yeah, 12 and up. We had 12 and up for the choir.
That was very professionally done. It looked
Thank
great.
you. Thank you so much. We learned a lot about video editing, and I think we all learned some new skills over this this pandemic. So it was fun.
Very impressive.
Thank you. Thanks, Kurt.
Okay, so join me in giving Marleena a hand as well, both Marleena and Kurt, for starting us out. Thank you so much for your presentations, for your knowledge, and for the gift of song. It was beautiful to hear you sing and the choir sing as well. All right, so next up we have Mishelle Link. Mishelle, when you're ready, feel free to come off of mute and I will get your presentation slides up. So give me just a second here to get that going. Oh, let's see. Did we lose Mishelle? No, there she is. Okay.
Hello, hello, Erin.
Hi.
Well, it's an honor to be here. Thank you, Kirk and Marleena, for sharing your story. It's really admirable and inspiring. So thank you so much. My name is Mishelle Link. I am an interior designer. I am from Mexico. I'm from Guadalajara. And I am married with 2 kids and I have 3 dogs. I have retinitis pigmentosa. And I've been practicing interior design for about 13 years.
Thank you, Mishelle. And my apologies, Marleena. I think you may have to make me the host again. I don't think it allows me to.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, no
Let me
problem.
see.
No problem. Okay, thank you so much. All right, so let me get your slides up, Mishelle, and we'll start.
Okay.
Mishelle and I are going to have a bit of a Q&A back and forth, and then we'll take time for audience Q&A whenever Mishelle is ready. So let's see here. Let me get your slides up, Mishelle. So Mishelle, you already told us about yourself. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about you, your life, your background?
Sure. So like I mentioned, I'm from Guadalajara. I'm from Mexico. And, you know, so I have retinitis pigmentosa. It runs in my family. And I've always been interested in design since I was a little girl. I didn't know what that meant when I was young because I felt affected by the way that I felt when I went into people's homes, but I wasn't sure what that meant. And then later on, after having different careers, someone noticed that I had a talent and I really started exploring that. And I was lucky enough to have projects without education. And then I decided to go to the Interior Designers Institute to get some classes under my belt and to cover myself and make sure that I didn't make mistakes. So I took the fundamental classes of interior design, like space planning, business principles. And then my business started growing from there. And I was lucky enough to work in a project in Laguna Beach that was a new construction, and it took 3 years. And I'll show you what that project is, Erin. If you could get the image up, that would be great.
Sure. Let's see. Is this the one you wanted to focus on? Okay, perfect.
Yes, thank you. So this was a 3-year project. I was lucky enough to work with a client that knew of my condition. As you all know, going into a new construction, it makes it really difficult with our vision, but my client was fully understanding and gave me 100% free design expression. And I'm really proud of this project. I worked well with the architect and the other artists, like the cabinet maker. And I'll just explain a little bit about the house. This was originally a craftsman style design. And the client first thought that maybe she wanted a craftsman Hawaiian style. And then we decided that maybe that wasn't a good direction with her existing furnishings. She has traveled the world and she had a lot of antiques. So between the architect, myself, and the builder, we came up with more of an elegant craftsman. And we had custom lighting done and just really focus on the ceiling. As you can see, it has a lot of different details, the beams and the lighting. So this was a very special project for me.
And I have a couple of questions for you, Mishelle. First is, for those of us who aren't familiar, what exactly would a craftsman design be, or what does that consist of? And then another question also, or I guess an ask, is a number of our audience members today won't be able to see the images. So do you mind describing the images to us?
Yes, I'm not sure if I'm going to do justice to explaining what a craftsman style is. So craftsman is usually has two pillars in the entry, and it could have some stone, or it could just be molding, stone and groove in the front. So we brought that in, and when I say that the ceiling design, we want it to be spectacular. So we use a lot of beams going across and paneling on the ceiling to just really focus on the ceiling and the design of the ceiling to bring that focus. I'm sorry, I'm really nervous.
Oh no, you're doing great, Mishelle. Don't Not to worry at all. No, you're doing excellent. And there's some other questions I have for you, if that's okay.
Of course.
So some of you may know that Mishelle helps me at the Braille Institute. She provides translation. We do art history classes often in Spanish, and thankfully Mishelle does an excellent job providing translations, and she's also learning to be a medical translator. And something that we've talked about in class a little bit is, say, your influences. We've talked about Diego Rivera and his murals and other types of architectural influences. So do you want to tell us a little bit about, say, some of your biggest influences in terms of art, design, even, running your own business when you had your interior design business?
Yes, thank you, Erin. Well, I feel like I find inspiration everywhere. Just looking at Kirk's photographs is just so beautiful, and I could see it in a space. So I don't necessarily have one specific designer that I follow or I'm affected by, but I mean, I would say Ralph Lauren, Mark Sykes. I'm always hungry to get inspired by other designers. And I definitely have my own personal style. I like very light and bright interiors. I don't know if that has anything to do with my RP. So that for me, that's very important to have lots of light, textures, colors, contrast. So that's how I design usually for a client.
Oh, nice too. And I remember reading in your bio statement, you talked about, say, the way you design or experience the interior of a home as a multi-sensory kind of experience. Did you want to mention anything about that at all, or?
Sure. So for me, I think it's very important when you walk in a space to really feel it with all your senses, to smell a beautiful candle, beautiful music, the textures, the contrast, and I think that you should really be in your space with your five senses.
Absolutely. And Marleena just sent a message in the chat. Marleena's question for you, Mishelle, is, do you feel like your artistic process has changed since you began losing your vision?
Yes and no. Obviously I'm losing my color vision now. So that's been a challenge that I have to really keep in mind when designing. I have to double check my colors, but I think the one thing that's affected the most with losing my vision is contrast. I think in designing, for me personally, contrast is very important.
Absolutely. Yes, and another question too that we have is there anything you'd like to share with us, especially for, say, aspiring artists or designers, things that you've encountered over your experience?
I would say the same message that everyone is saying here. Don't put limitations on yourself just because you are limited in some way. Doesn't mean you can't do it. We have to find the tools to help us, but also let us express who we are as artists.
Absolutely. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Mishelle.
Thank you so much, Erin. Thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us? Otherwise, we have about 5 minutes, so we can open it up to more questions from the rest of the audience today.
Sure. Maybe you can bring up some other images, whatever image, and I can, or if someone has a question, I'm open to that too.
And Kylie just put a question in the chat. As an interior designer, how has your vision loss affected you?
Well, definitely, like I mentioned, the color vision, it's difficult because, sometimes I will be designing and I say, don't you love this gray color? And people look at me like, no, that's not gray, it's green. Or I might think it's, pink and it's orange. So that's a challenge. And I'm sure there's a tool that I can use in overcoming that obstacle. And, also, I think the other biggest challenge is when I go into people's home, not being able to see steps or having the fear of falling, but then being vulnerable about pulling out my cane because someone might question, well, how is this visually impaired person going to help me with my design? And I think that that's the really hard part about retinitis pigmentosa, is that people don't understand that we see, but we don't see.
Absolutely. And we have about 4 minutes. So if anyone else has questions, you can put them in the chat if you like, but if it's easier for you, feel free to come off of mute and feel free to ask Mishelle some of your questions.
Mishelle, how do you find your clients? Do you belong to a design firm and then you're referred to them, or do you just get clients through like word of mouth?
I've been lucky to not have to advertise. All has been word of mouth.
That's really amazing.
Thank you so much. And I've been lucky that the people that I worked with have trusted me. And I will share one quick story. I had a project in Manhattan Beach, and this was when I was still driving quite a bit, so I was able to go to LA County, and I had this client, and she had 4 kids, and the house was little, but it was right on the beach, so we needed to maximize the storage and the space. And it was really fun to work with her. She has an autistic child, and when I finished my project, she was so grateful because she spent 40+ hours at home with therapies for her child. And she said, Mishelle, you don't know what you've done to help us be happier in our space. I feel good spending all this time in my home. And to me, that's what's important. Of course, I love making an income, but I really love making a difference in people's homes and how they feel, and to make sure that's an expression of who they are.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful, Mishelle. Thank you so much for sharing that story with us. That is truly inspiring.
Thank you so much.
Of course. We still
and I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm so nervous. I apologize
No.
about my squeaky voice.
Oh, no. You're doing great. Don't worry. You heard me sound like Kermit the Frog at the beginning. Don't worry at all. No, we still have 2 minutes. So how would you like
I'll just maybe I'll just talk a little bit about what the image is, and maybe if you can scroll quickly. So this project that's on the screen right now, this was a beach home in Newport Beach, and it was a remodel. We didn't do much structural changes because the house had a very good floor plan. So mainly it was just adding details and moldings and changing surfaces. We enlarged the kitchen a little bit, but this was also a very special project in my heart. And again, I had full freedom of artistic expression. And I was just so lucky. And, you know, with these clients, I was even able to draw custom lighting, which is scary in itself, you know, to make sure that your scale is right and it's gonna look good. But like I mentioned, I've been lucky to work with contractors and builders that support me and say, okay, well, this is how you want the chandelier. Let's make a mock-up out of cardboard. And I feel so grateful for that. And I was able to fully express myself and see, you know, from lighting to custom rugs, people would help me with the colors, choosing the colors. Is this what I'm seeing? So I think there's beauty in being vulnerable, and we don't have to be ashamed of that.
Mhm. Absolutely. Thank you, Mishelle. That's a perfect stopping point. You timed that just perfectly. Let's give Mishelle a hand, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
All right, so let me stop sharing my screen for now. And Valerie, are you ready? You're next up. And let me know, Valerie, if you need me to share your iCloud.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Because there's quite a few pictures up there this
Mhm.
time around. Under 100, but just barely under 100, so that if people want to look at it, they can. And that link should last about 30 days.
So what I'll do, Valerie, is I'll pop that in the chat, but I'll also put it
Okay.
on the screen as well. And you feel free to talk about whatever you prefer, and I'll pull up whatever image you're discussing on
Okay.
screen. Not a problem. I got the link last night and I was so amazed. I said, oh my gosh, this is a massive portfolio. This is wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, I think some you haven't seen before, so I thought that would be kind of cool
Yes.
for you to have a look at. I don't know if all of them were up to par, but because some of them were sort of like more. Sorry, my phone's talking to me. Let me see. There we go. Turned off speech. Some of them were more like works in progress, but I thought it would be cool for people to see not just the finished product, but also the in between stuff. Because a lot of people don't get to see that, and sort of just they don't really know how the artist came to the end result of their project. So I thought it'd be fun for people to get to see sometimes the beginning, the middle, and the end of a project. I know not everything I have up there is shown in detail from start to finish, but there are a few things there that you'll be able to discern are works in progress or sketches or whatnot. So my name is Valerie Alcaraz, and I was born totally blind from optic nerve hypoplasia. So I've never seen anything, maybe light, but I can't even verify if I've actually seen light, because sometimes it feels like a misfire from my brain making me think I've seen something like, you know, really bright, where you have to like hold your hand up to shield your eyes. But the light, the sensation of light doesn't go away because it's not actually in the room. So I never know for sure if I've actually seen the light or not. And that kind of fascinates me. I would consider myself a visual artist and a tactile artist, despite not seeing before in my life. And I think I kind of always wanted to be an artist ever since I was a kid. I started out looking at like the structures of Barbie dolls and seeing how they were made. And I was fascinated by, you know, the loosely termed human form in the Barbie's case, because she's not realistic. You know, she's not anatomically correct for a human body, but you know, her face was symmetrical. It was very, very well, you know, kids would have considered it pretty and all that stuff. So, you know, I was fascinated by trying to replicate that image with my modeling clay don't know how often I succeeded. And a lot of times I ended up, mashing my colors together because I didn't know what was what, and no one told me there were different colors in the packet. So it came out gray. But that was kind of my own, the start of my own experimentation. Before then, in kindergarten and out throughout elementary school, you're given those handprints to make for your parents and Christmas trees to make for the holidays, and turtles. I made a turtle one time, but its little feet fell off. But I enjoyed making things. And I think the first time I learned that there was a chemical reaction with ceramic clay was when I tried to make something in 4th grade and it exploded in the kiln. And I don't know what I tried to do. I think I tried to make people on a platform, and I guess they didn't teach how to make it hollows or poke a hole so that there was some way for the air to escape. And I didn't know that. So that was I guess kind of a sad moment for me because I didn't get my project. But I would say for a while, clay and anything artistic sort of faded into the background until after high school. And when I started college in 2010, I didn't know at that point that they had art classes until I went over the catalog and thought I would try my first ceramic class. And that's how the adventure began. Some of my teachers were a bit resistant and a bit, skittish around blind people, which I have a hard time comprehending sometimes, but I know it's all about education and them knowing what to expect. And sometimes even then they don't know how to work with someone. But some of them, a lot of them actually were quite accommodating and helpful. And I, kept in touch with them for a good long while. I still keep in touch with one of my art professors. And so subsequently I majored in art instead of just taking classes as a hobby. I decided that at some point in my life, I'd like to pursue it as either a side job or a career, but make it more a part of my life than I originally expected. So I graduated with my associate's degree in art. So I took a lot of those, same art classes as other students, my sighted peers, and did art history. I did some drawing and some painting. And you'll hopefully see some of the paintings I have in there. And one of my drawings that I really loved was a drawing of a cockatoo. It was done on a metal foil type of paper, thicker than your average kitchen foil. It's made by the American Printing House for the Blind, and it's a paper that you can basically draw into, and it looks like it's been engraved. Or if you flip it over, then you have raised lines. So that's how I did my drawings and some of my paintings as well. I would sketch them on that type of paper, and then I think we did, it might have been like turpentine or some other kind of thing to make the black and white contrast on the cockatoo drawing. A cockatoo is basically a large parrot, and it's got feathers that are on its head that this one was an umbrella cockatoo. So the feathers fan out over its head. It's really pretty to me. I got to pet cockatoos, and I took some of the stuff a lot of the stuff I create is from my life. So birds are one of my biggest interests, along with dogs. So I got to volunteer at a parrot sanctuary, and I got firsthand experience with petting the birds, feeling the form, and then getting some tactile images off the net, and my school produced them for me. They made them tactile, and they were raised lines. I still have a lot of those images in a little book for reference, but they made them so that I could feel the two-dimensional equivalent of whatever I was trying to draw. In this case, that was the cockatoo. And so yeah, that was a really fun drawing. But what I struggled with for a lot of my teachers and the criteria was making it visually acceptable and because they had certain learning outcomes that you had to fulfill, I had to comply, and it wasn't like I could break the barriers and go outside the box only to a certain point. And then, you know, some teachers, aside from the learning outcomes, had their own ideas of what art should be, and were resistant to my ideas. So that made it kind of difficult too. And they wouldn't always explain why, because they didn't know how to visually or like convert the visual aspects to something I could relate to. So yeah, but so I had a mixed bag of experiences, but a lot of it has been positive. And I would say, you know, knowing what you need is a good starting point, and you know, going out there and not listening to the naysayers. And there's a lot of different photos there. I'd say there's one in there that I love that's a guide dog, and they have the harness on. I don't know what the colors are. It's been so long since I made that one. But basically it's standing on a little paw print shaped platform, I believe. And it's got the harness and leash on, like it's ready to go to work, basically. And then one of my favorite paintings that I successfully did in class was of a sailboat on water, with a bit of a sunset in the background. The one thing I forgot to do on that one was make the sunset somehow tactile, but everything else pretty much is tactile. You can feel the sailboat, you can feel the sand in the water as the waves move around. You can feel the waves. And I used acrylic paint on that metal plate. So I drew the lines of the boat and the water first, and then we ran over them with the puffy paint. And I did have an assistant in many of my classes. Basically, they let me do what I needed to do to complete the projects, but would, for example, with the paintings, they would block off the parts that I shouldn't paint, and then I could paint freely where I needed to paint. So that was kind of fun. How much time do we have so far, Erin? Uh-oh, did my phone die? Oh no, it's still there.
You're still on. You're
Sorry
still
about
on.
that. Okay, yeah, thanks.
This is a note from Kylie. I was born with your same condition. While I
Oh, okay.
still have some vision, I would be scared to do some of the projects you had done. Very
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard because I've never seen, so the scare aspect isn't there for me, but I can understand where someone who hasn't who has sight in whatever varying degrees, how it would be a little scary to say, like, do some of the stuff I did with the saw, because I did take a 3-dimensional class also. So I worked with sanders and saws, and made different wooden projects. One of them was a bowling alley table. Everyone else had to make foosball tables, but because I wouldn't be able to engage with it and play with it myself with someone else, I made a bowling alley table with 9 pins instead of 10. So it was like a diamond shape, instead of the triangular pin shape, when they're all in formation.
So Valerie, I have a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
You have that beautiful tactile piece that I was sharing in social media, that
Uh-huh.
cover art tactile piece that you won an award for, second place award for,
Oh yeah.
through American Printing House for the Blind. So I don't know if you wanted to mention that at all. And one other question, Valerie also too has taught abroad. I believe it was China. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Did you want to talk about
I
either
did.
of those experiences?
Sure. So I'll go in order. I'll do China first, because chronological order. I went there in 2019 from February to May. I was there for 3 months. There's an orphanage out there in China. They're not allowed to call them orphanages because government will really come down hard on any orphanages that are that have foreign workers. So they had to just say that they were working with scholarship students, which they were, but they had another area where there were blind kids that were being left by parents or just whoever, that felt like they couldn't care for the child, and so they were taken there to learn what they could before being called back to their homeland, like their home province in China. And so I got to work there as an intern. It wasn't a paid internship, but it was still great experience for me. And I mostly taught English there for like a preschool level English for ages 4 to 9, so that if they got adopted, then they'd have a better chance at transitioning from, you know, where they were to this new environment they were going into. But I did also make some pictures with a Braille writer, and I helped them color in. Well, it didn't really matter in or outside the lines, but just so that they could feel the shape of what it was. A lot of them were teddy bears or houses or rabbits, things that, you know, they might have learned about in the classes that I taught, because we were learning a lot of animal names. So, or, you know, going to your new house. And so I try to make it relatable to them and not too complex, especially for the really young ones. So that was really fun. And I love those kids. It was really hard to leave after that. And that's another one of my great passions is children. So I love to work with art and kids in some way, shape, or form. You'll see a lot of birds in my artwork, dogs, like guide dogs especially. Not too much with kids per se, but like working with them would be awesome. Another favorite theme of mine is water and ships. I love going on boat rides. So I do have a mosaic up there in the iCloud link as well. That's got another ship on the water with fish and stuff. And then for the APH contest, I submitted a work that I collaborated with another artist in New York. She's totally sighted, but wanted to do some sort of tactile artwork and wanted to collaborate with a visually impaired artist. And somehow she found my name or got referred to me by another friend. I'm not exactly sure how she found me, but she messaged me and explained what she was trying to do. And so we did a couple of Zoom calls. I showed her some of the stuff that I'd done in the past, some of my sketches, and from there we brainstormed on what would be the best way to work together. And so I had those little paper tiles that you see on the quilt itself. I had a large bag full of those little tiles, and she liked them. And since they were already, you know, on my end, they were already a completed thing, just not attached to any project yet. I mailed them to her, and she went and did the quilting. So it was a combination of her work with my work, and that was really fun to get the end result back and see what she'd done to it. And it gave me ideas for trying to make some more quilts like that of my own, since I still have quite a lot of those little tiles. And as you can see here, people were talking earlier about how, you know, you're learning new things during the pandemic. I've since learned how to hand sew. Erin, I'm not sure how well this will show up, but this is pretty simple. I'm just making a baby blanket, sewing the fleece to the quilt part. And that's, I'm still in the middle of it, so you can see my thread there. And I think the fleece is pink, and the quilted part has little safari animals, lionesses and elephants, and it's really hard to get it to cooperate with me. Let's see.
Okay, so Valerie, we are actually out of time, but thank you so much for
You're
sharing
welcome.
with us. Your portfolio is incredibly extensive, and I did put the link into the chat. I think pretty much everyone who's here today, I think I almost know everyone who's here today, so I can send out an email with that link as well. Yes, yes.
And then you can also, if anyone wants contact info, you can share my email address with them. That's totally fine.
Okay, wonderful. Well,
good.
let's give Valerie a hand. Thank you so much, Valerie.
Valerie, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anna.
I mean, I'm overwhelmed. I'm so excited that this was so fantastic.
Thank you, Mona.
Thank you.
Last but not least, we have Michael J. Dougherty. So whenever you're ready, Mike, I do have some questions ready for you. Let's see here.
Hi, hello from Hollywood.
Hello. Hello from Anaheim in my case. Hope you have some nice weather out there in Hollywood, Michael. And can you tell us a bit about yourself and your work?
Sure, and thank you for having me, by the way. And all this stuff is kind of like jaw-dropping amazing. So, I mean, I'm kind of in awe of everyone that's come before me.
Your work is
so-
jaw-dropping amazing too, Mike. I couldn't narrow my questions down, actually.
That's okay. So basically, I'm a New Yorker who was born with spina bifida and hydrocephalus. I'm paralyzed from the knees down, and I have a shunt to drain brain fluid. But actually that hydrocephalus, and I wasn't going to say this originally, but I didn't realize that there was a theme or unofficial theme, was that it caused optical nerve atrophy. So I've always had visual issues, but I can get to that a little bit later. But I've always been in love with movies. It was sort of my salvation as a child because I was bullied or in the hospital a whole lot. But I also, it was really the arts entire, because I think my parents very early on gleaned that that was the one thing that brightened me up. So whether it was movies or it was writing or it was drawing or it was singing, if you put me in that environment, suddenly I became myself. And so eventually I ended up going to NYU for film school, which is not an experience I really liked, but it pushed me on to other things like teaching. And I ended up getting both a master's degree in special education and a master's degree in screenwriting. And the second I got from the National University of Ireland in Galway, which is how I became connected with Erin in one way or another, because I was interested in Irish things that were in California, because there only seems to be like 3 people. So after Ireland, I ended up moving to Los Angeles, and I got myself into the Writers Guild here with my master's thesis script, which was disability themed. And from there, I joined the Writers with Disabilities Committee, and their main function, among many, is to support writers with disabilities, but also to be connected into the industry in such a way that we can create sea changes in terms of representation in front of and behind the camera, because disability makes up 25% of the population, but there's something like only 3% of characters that have disabilities in normal television, or everyday television, I should say. And there's an even smaller amount that where the character is actually played by an actor with a disability. So we've been trying to support more authentic storytelling. From there, with a fellow member of that committee, I helped co-found the Real Abilities Film Festival here in Los Angeles, which originally started in New York about 12 years ago, but they had a lot of trouble getting it done in LA. But I thought, well, that should be easy because there's so many film festivals across the city every year. We should be able to do this. And it was very difficult, but we finally pulled it off through the City of Los Angeles Department on Disability. And we had our first year 4 years ago. And I've left the project as of now, but last year we had our 3rd year, and one of the highlights was that I got to interview Caroline Thompson for a 30th anniversary screening of Edward Scissorhands, which, going back to when I was a child, I was 10 or 11 when that movie came out, and it was the first time that I had ever seen myself reflected back at me in a meaningful way. And so I got to talk to her about that. And so it was a nice sort of coming around of all things. And in the past year, because of pandemic, I've been focusing a lot more on just writing and trying to get that done. And that is my primary thing in life is I write. So.
Wonderful, Mike. Thank you for sharing with us. I'll start by asking a few questions that I have for you. I think you've answered some of them already, but one that I did have, I was working on reading through the articles that you sent me, and one of them is related to what you just mentioned, the Edward Scissorhands reference. And I have a quote from you. I actually was copying and pasting a lot of your quotes. Your writing is so, I wrote, it's powerful, clear-eyed, and a punch in the gut in a good way because it calls us to stop and think. And this was one of the quotes that I pulled. Edward Scissorhands, and that was basically in brackets. I know that's not an exact quote. Edward Scissorhands became the linchpin for years spent believing in the healing power of movies and the way stories can move the world by taking a person, no matter who they are or what their experience, and saying, this is you, this is us. Would you like to elaborate on this for us a little bit?
That it's okay. I don't even actually remember even saying that, so that's pretty good. I had to jog my memory. It's pretty good, that guy. No, I think what it was that so much of disability as it's represented is represented by an able-bodied community. And I have mixed feelings about that, because I think that it should be inclusive and we should all get together and make stuff together. That's a good thing. But I also think that what Edward Scissorhands kind of taught me was that it's okay to be weird. It's okay to have your own experience and to be upset about things and to talk about that and to be open about that experience. I don't know if that's answering your questions, but yeah, I'm getting sort of emotional.
No worries, no worries. I want to piggyback on something you said a little bit earlier about the idea of actors who are quote unquote able-bodied often portraying someone on screen with a disability. From my personal experience, and this actually connects back to Mishelle a little bit, a year ago, my 5-year-old son was diagnosed with autism, and this is right during the pandemic. So my husband and I are just frantically trying to find as much information and resources as we can with everything shut down. And in this small way, we learned about the TV series Atypical, and the way it started out, the first season got quite a bit of backlash from the autism community because it was just as you said, Mike, that they had people without autism, also called neurotypical people, portraying these people with autism. And by the second season, whoever produced the TV series, I don't remember off the top of my head, took in this information, took in, some of this feedback and tried to incorporate more actors who experienced autism as well too. And to actually move into a different quote that you have, maybe this one will be a little easier to answer. I didn't mean to throw you a curveball, but pretty much everyone here today is an artist or creator of some kind. And another quote that I found from you, I hope you remember this one, is make better art and boldly. Make better art by us and for us and about us. Let's look at each other in the eye, embrace, discuss, and create together. Who knows? We might learn something about ourselves and how to keep going on. As Samuel Beckett, that great poet of the absurd, once wrote, I can't go on, I'll go on. Art is not a wall, it is a window. Go through it. So I don't know if you want to comment on that at all, or we also have about 5 more minutes, so you can open it up to questions from the audience as well, whatever you prefer.
That one I do remember saying, so, or writing. Yeah, it's this idea that don't be afraid to tell your own story, no matter how messy and complicated that might be, because I think Hollywood tries to put, particularly disability, because it doesn't quite understand it or it's not quite comfortable with it, tries to put it in sort of cookie cutter terms. And that doesn't work for me particularly. I mean, like we said, Edward Scissorhands, it's such a weird movie, but it spoke so clearly like a documentary in terms of how I was living life at that point. So my encouragement is always, yes, this experience is difficult and it's going to ruffle some tail feathers, but you owe it to yourself and to your art to keep going.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike. We have 4 more minutes. Do you want to open up questions from the audience?
Sure.
Okay, and I saw Pascal just came in. Hello, Pascal. She is joining us from halfway around the world. So welcome. Welcome, everyone. Oh, and let's see. Oh my gosh. And you were on a flight to France. Well, Pascal, thank you so much for coming, despite the fact that you're in transit. Wow. Okay, so anyone who would like to ask Mike some questions? I also know some of you here are writers. So now is a great time to ask your burning writing questions.
So Mike, this is Kurt. I'm just trying to wrap my head around exactly, you write screenplays for shows that are being produced on television and such?
Haven't broken through yet, but it's primarily movies. But I'll do anything. Actually, right now I'm working on a book of short fiction. So it's just writing in general that I love.
It's very, it sounds very interesting. I'm just kind of curious about how you, how you get your work out there. But it sounds like you find your different avenues in which to do that.
It's difficult, and it would be difficult if one did not have a disability. So it's made exponentially more so if you do. But my encouragement, I think, is to find like-minded individuals and try to create a movement independently and say, well, these are the stories that we want to tell, because eventually Hollywood will come around. I mean, like I said, 25% of the population, they're sitting on a gold mine in terms of an audience to bring in, whether it's television or movies.
Right.
So.
And Kylie also, oh, sorry, Kurt,
I was just going to mention there's a wonderful that I think everybody on this conversation should view at some point on Netflix. There's a documentary video called Crip Camp, and it's really fascinating. It was produced by
Love Crip Camp.
Yeah, you've seen it?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's amazing.
And I just think everybody should watch it because it really shows how young disabled teenagers of a certain generation became the they spearheaded the disability rights political movement, and it's just really quite fascinating.
Absolutely. And we have one other question from Kylie, and then we'll wrap right up, everyone. So Kylie is asking Michael, what are some of your favorite, I believe she means screenplays that you've written, even though, say, you haven't broken through yet. I remember from your bio, I think you had an award-winning screenplay that you had written.
So there's a website called The Blacklist, which every year puts out the 10 best unproduced screenplays in Hollywood. And they created a subdivision called the Disability List. And last year, one of my scripts got on it, and it's called No One Is Looking. And it's about a kid in a wheelchair who kills a bully and gets away with it because no one believes that a kid in a wheelchair would be capable of something like that. And then he is tasked with finding the severed head of the bully in question. And it's very, very dark. My work tends to skew that way, but it was me wanting to talk about, among other things, feeling upset that disability, this community often gets passed by. And sort of, I wanted to address that existential question and put a lot of my rage into it. And what I'm proudest of is the fact that I wrote this 110-page, very weird, very dark, at times very ugly depiction of humanity, and it got accepted. Like I got to do exactly what I wanted to do, and someone said, yeah, this is worth our time. So that's why, again, I encourage, like, just do your thing, and eventually people will listen.
Congratulations.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you so much, everyone. I know we are at time, a little bit past time, but feel free to come off of mute. Let's give everyone a hand for presenting today. I learned so much. I hope everyone did as well.
Thank you,
Yes.
everyone.
And
Thank
Erin,
you.
I know other artists have mentioned this, but I also would like, if you could share my contact information, I'd like to stay in touch with all of these amazing, gifted, creative people.
Absolutely.
Here,
Yes,
you
I might be doing that on Monday if that's okay, but I will get that done. So
Yes, Erin, also share my information with anyone. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I'm in awe. I'm so inspired. I have a lump in my throat just hearing all of you, and thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your stories.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. All right. Well, take care. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Have a good weekend. Thank you so much for being here today. You'll hear from me soon.
Thank you so
And
much,
Thank you.
Erin.
thank you for inviting all of
Bye.
us to
Thank you.
participate in this, Erin. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
of course. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming and
Thank
for
you, Erin.
participating.
Thank you so much, Erin.
Yes, this was great. Thank you, everybody. It's good to hear everybody's voice. Have a good day.
You too.
Erin,
too.
are
Thank
you
you.
okay? Bye, y'all. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.